Go in depth. Take a closer look. Relevant Radio.
Welcome back to A Closer Look. I'm Sheila Liaugminas. Told you I was going to pivot in this half of the program from talking about President Bush 41, George H.W. Bush, and talking about his legacy, his tribute, his deep, deep faith, which informed everything he did, everything he said, every decision he made. I just heard earlier Speaker of the House Paul Ryan talking about how before he made the decision on the Gulf War, he prayed and prayed, and he wrote his family a letter saying that how profound a decision that was for him, and how he held every single life as precious. Every single human life is precious, he wrote, and he meant that. And that's how he lived his life, honoring in service every single human life with dignity. So now you don't just hear about a man who holds that to be true, but you'll hear from that man. That man is Walter B. Hoye, and I'm so honored to have him here today. He is a hero in America for whom every single life is precious as well. Walter B. Hoye II is the founder and president of the Issues for Life Foundation and subject of the new book, Black and Pro-Life in America, the Incarceration and Exoneration of Walter B. Hoye. Pastor Hoye, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for your witness to living the gospel of life.
I'm so honored to be here. This is an awesome opportunity. Thank you for having me.
It's such an honor. I have followed you for a long time. You and I have mutual good friends. One of our best mutual friend is Uju Ikiocha. And we both follow her, and I see a lot of things you post, and Uju posts that you're doing for life. And now you're here. I'm so honored and happy to have you here. This book about you, Pastor Hoye, Black and Pro-Life in America, will probably catch a lot of our listeners coast to coast right now, not just off guard a little bit, but they might wonder, well, Black and Pro-Life in America seems to beg the question many people are thinking, what is different about being Black and Pro-Life in America than being white and pro-life in America?
My goodness, awesome question. And before I hit there, I just love Uju too. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, she's awesome. For the most part, Black Americans are targeted. We are the absolute target of the abortion industry. Yet, overwhelmingly, we politically support the party that absolutely supports it and makes it a reality today. And so being Black and pro-life in America, it tells my personal story about the cost involved in being Black and pro-life in our country today.
Well, so let's talk about that, because I've had other guests on the program. Alveda King is a friend of mine as well, not nearly as close as you are. She wrote the foreword to your book. She's a great pro-life hero as well, heroine. She's often citing and quoting her uncle Martin. I want to share with you, Walter, that I have a book out. It's been out for a few years by the same publisher as you, Ignatius. And mine is non-negotiable, Essential Principles of a Just Society and Humane Culture. And the reason I bring that, I want you to know, in it, I prolifically cite and quote Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And many people don't use the term Reverend Doctor. They just start with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is throughout my book quoted for his many speeches and many things people don't know that he said. Towards the end of the book, I cited his little-known address towards the end of his life called Onward, I think it was called. So I just want you to know that, because he was your hero. So talk about that, how you came up in life from earliest stages, the early stages of your life, Walter, being highly impressed by Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, to the point where at a certain young age of life, you could have gone the route of, as you say as the book says about you, of following those who were angered by the situation in the culture, and could have followed maybe Malcolm X and his impact, but you didn't, because you were impressed by Reverend Dr. King.
He made such a dramatic impact on my life. As a young man, I literally, with my family, marched with Dr. King in Detroit and in Chicago. He was a huge influence on my life. But living in the hood in Detroit, there were those that really loved what Malcolm X had to say, and quite honestly, he was making a lot of sense to a lot of us. But as I began to get into Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s message, and when I began to combine that with what I was believing about the scriptures had to say, that changed my life profoundly, and it kept me from going down the wrong path.
So give us did you grow up in a family of faith? I know it's in the book, but I want our listeners to hear it. Were you formed by your faith or informed by it later?
I was formed by my family has always been in church. We've always been involved. That was always a big part of our life. But at the time in the 60s, you'll also read that my dad broke the color line in the NFL. And this was in 1968. He was they had players back then, but they didn't have any of us working in the front office. So Dad was the first one to go to San Diego. That's how we moved from Detroit to San Diego. And in the process of doing all that, I got a chance to see racism at a very close up level. And I began to see how really awful it was. And so for a while, I was sitting there thinking, we really do need to do something more along the lines of Malcolm X. But as I began to test the scriptures, as I began to put those things into practice, it became very, very clear to me that wasn't the way to go.
I think one learns that very clearly and quickly and early on. But it's just startling that you had. I mean, the very title of the book tells people that you had an incarceration, a later exoneration. But this was for nothing more than, get this, folks. It's Walter B. Hoye, minister, soft-spoken Baptist minister, arrested in Oakland, California in 2009. You can tell the story, Walter, and put in jail for holding a sign up outside an abortion clinic that read, "God loves you and your baby. Let us help you." So what's the story behind that, Walter? And how could it have come to that when that's this simple sign telling people that God loves you and we're here to help you? Oh, well, you know what? You could tell his connection was a little bit scratchy there. So we're reconnecting with Walter Hoye, and that's a good tease to what he's going to say. He is, as you can tell, a tender-hearted, faith-filled Baptist minister arrested in Oakland, California, thrown in jail for holding this sign outside an abortion clinic that read, "God loves you and your baby." So they're loving the mother and the baby. Let us help you. And he stood peacefully outside the family planning specialist's abortion clinic, offering women another option. So isn't this about choice, the choice movement? Then why not let women have one? And that's exactly what happens when people are hauled away or taken away, or there's a bubble zone, which there is in many areas, municipal areas, that keeps pro-life people outside by ordinance a certain yardage or far away from the entrance to an abortion clinic, so that they have to elevate and project their voices across the parking lot to be heard by women going in. And then, of course, their escorts and others who work at the clinic then accuse the pro-lifers of shouting and screaming. Not true. What they're trying to do is project their voices. "We're here to help you. Please let us help you. God loves you and your baby," said Walter Hoye's sign. The book, Black and Pro-Life in America, tells Walter's incredible story. Not only of that, sharing his love of the people outside the abortion clinic, but the love for his faith. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Walter Hoye is going to tell you how in the world it came to that.
Go in depth. Take a closer look. Relevant Radio.
Welcome back. I'm Sheila Liaugminas. Phones are open, 888-914-9149. Those of you in the Bay Area, those of you around Oakland, certainly you probably know Walter B. Hoye, Baptist minister. Maybe if in the pro-life movement, you know him across the country. You really ought to. I know I have for years followed the work Walter B. Hoye has done. But now there's a new book about him that's out by Ignatius Press, Black and Pro-Life in America. It tells the story of how this Baptist minister, gentle man, pro-life man, formed by his faith, was arrested in Oakland, California in 2009 and thrown in jail for holding up a sign outside an abortion clinic that read, "God loves you and your baby. Let us help you." And he wound up in jail because he stood peacefully outside the family planning specialist's abortion clinic, offering women another option. In other words, a choice. Isn't that what the choice movement is all about? Apparently not. Walter, I'm so glad you were able to ask you this. I was flipping through a part of the book I flagged, and it's the part where you had never yet heard of family planning specialists before you were invited to join the sidewalk, apparently the very momentous occasion in your life, before you were invited to join the sidewalk counselors there on Webster Street. And then you said you were focused on your church, on your congregation, and the next conference, being very activist as you are. Abortion and its impact on the Black community had become issue number one at Progressive Missionary Baptist Church, but you had not yet visited an abortion clinic. Describe that incident for us and that whole event.
Well, that's an awesome part of the book. Essentially, we had come to understand the impact of abortion. In other words, Black Americans were 12, 13, 14% of the population, and yet we were accounting for, a third of all abortions. And we began to look at the numbers, and the picture got very, very clear. This was not right. And so it caught my attention. In addition to that, it was becoming clearer and clearer to me through the birth of my son what abortion really is and what abortion really does. And when those things combined, it became absolutely clear that we've got to get involved in making a difference in the Black community regarding this abortion issue. And so at that point, I agreed to go out in front of the abortion clinic.
And so you did, in your time slot at this family planning specialist is what they call it, oxymoron, is a family planning specialist, and it's about abortion clinic from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. You would stand on the public sidewalk near the clinic loading zone and watch for the telltale signs of a woman on her way to an abortion. And then it was very close by. It was off limits, as things always are, right, to pro-lifers, the entrance to an abortion clinic, but you get as close as you can and try to, reach the women going in. And the book about you, Walter, says, but that was no barrier to you, to the spiritual power of prayer and heartfelt concern that you could exercise from the sidewalk, because you, Walter, figured that if by those means, prayer and heartfelt concern, you could save just one life each Tuesday while you're out there. You felt like you could save 52 lives each year. So how did that go from the beginning?
Well, in the beginning, we really had no issues with the police or with the clinic at all. It just so happens that my son answered the three most asked questions that I would get from women going in the clinic. Women would literally walk up to me and say, is it true that God loves me? And I'd say yes. And they say, well, if it's true that God loves me, does he love my baby? And she would say her baby. It wasn't her fetus. It wasn't her tissue or cells. It was her child. And then I'd say yes. And then she would say, well, if it's true that God loves me and my baby, will you help me? And in every single case we did. It really didn't matter what she needed. We would just simply help her. And in the process of doing it, my reputation just grew. People would literally make an appointment on the Tuesday, the day I was out there, the time I was out there, just so they could meet me and get the help they needed.
Wow. I mean, those three things. Isn't that amazing, Walter? The three things. God loves you, and God loves your baby, and let us help you. The three messages that drew women to you. So as the book says about you, and by the way, if you just tuned in, the book is Black and Pro-Life in America, the Incarceration and Exoneration of Walter B. Hoye. Baptist minister Walter B. Hoye is my guest. The phones are open, 888-914-9149. Have experiences like that outside abortion clinics. I've had a few in the pro-life groups out there, praying the rosary, holding signs, people calling to the women going in, offering them another way, which gets to, Walter, what you did. In this same section of the book, it says, once in a while, a woman would stop and listen to your soft, comforting voice saying, good morning. May I talk to you about alternatives to the clinic? Did that just drive the abortion staff crazy inside?
Oh, my goodness. I simply said, good morning, may I talk about turning the clinic, because I wanted to respect her decision. She didn't necessarily have to be there. So in the process of just respecting her, it opened up the door for much more conversation. Inside the abortion clinic, you could see that the alarms were going off. They really did not like me being out there, because more times than not, we would have a conversation, and the young lady would get the help she needed, and she would change her mind about going into the clinic.
Wow. Yeah, that is so profound, just to be able to hear another way. As you say, can I offer you an alternative? May I talk to you? That's asking her permission. That's so empowering, Walter. And to even let her know, that's what the pregnancy help centers do, to let the woman know she does have a choice. There is another way, and there are many, many alternatives. So what brought this to the point of incarceration? Because we even have Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco saying, few people are willing to suffer targeting and deprivation of freedom for the sake of justice. But you are one such hero, and anyone looking for inspiration to do what's right no matter the cost, or doubts the logical and moral coherence of being Black and pro-life, needs to read this book, which gets back to what's incoherent about that. However, that's something you started with. Maybe we can get back to that. But what got to the point where the abortion staffers got you arrested?
Well, this is what happened. There was one particular Tuesday, and again, you've got to see me out there. I'm with two other senior Black women from my church, and they're part of our sidewalk counseling team ministry. I'm out there, and all of a sudden, there were 27 27 women who had an appointment with the abortion clinic for an abortion. 27 in a 2-hour period. There's no way they can do all abortions, but they weren't coming for an abortion. They had heard that there was a black preacher on the public sidewalk helping the women going into the clinic. And so they would literally come, and then they would literally just stand and wait until I finished helping one and help the other. That was like the last straw. It got to the point where it was extremely difficult for them to continue with it, and they could not do that until they finally put me in jail.
Under what charges? I mean, what alleged law did you allegedly break or violate in order for them to incarcerate you?
I didn't actually believe that it would boil down to being incarcerated. I just couldn't really believe that I was going to go to jail because I was helping somebody. That was just unfathomable. But it got painfully clear that it didn't matter what happened. Even in court, we had videotape evidence that my rights were being violated. And even with videotape evidence impeaching the only testimony against me, none of the women were complaining because they were the ones getting the help. The only complaint we had was the executive director of the abortion clinic. And when that happened, oh my goodness, it became painfully clear that even when we impeached her testimony with videotape evidence, I was going to go to jail. That's when I began to understand the reality of what I was facing.
Well, and this is unfortunately all too believable when we watch the Gosnell film, which those of us who covered it as investigative journalists back when it happened, I know we were all trying to generate the awareness out there that it was happening. In the media section of that trial room, the courtroom was empty until they got shamed, if you will, into covering it. We're going to take a call from Valerie in Chicago, who's called in with a question for you, Walter. Thanks for calling, Valerie. Go ahead.
Hi, how would one become involved to support on occasion? And does it, if you don't have the kind of commitment that you have in terms of time and energy?
Walter, that's probably a good question to set up for your Issues for Life organization. Can you tell people how they can support that? And also for people who don't have the time to do what you did but want to be able to do something.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. If you go to our website, Issues, and that's plural, Issues, 4, life.org, there you'll find what you need if you'd like to support our organization, our 501c3, and I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. But there are so many ways that you can help women facing this difficult decision, and I love to refer people to pregnancy care centers with all my heart. There's so much good going on there, and there's so many ways that you can help.
Well, that's a really good way to put it. The pregnancy help centers, the crisis pregnancy centers across this country. Walter, they proliferate, don't they? Far more they outnumber than abortion clinics do. There are far more pregnancy help centers in this country, and yet so many people coast to coast don't even know that, and they're usually very close to an abortion clinic. Is that the case in your area?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, when I'm on the sidewalk, I had literature that allowed me to help women that they needed doctors, they needed nurses, they needed prenatal care, they just needed a medical opinion, someone to talk to. I had literature that allowed them to get that. As a matter of fact, they were on my speed dial. I could call, and we would literally, in some cases, just take them to the pregnancy care center. And that was part of what the law actually prevented me from doing. The law actually said that it was against the law in Oakland to stand on a public sidewalk, hold up a sign, pass out literature, and have a conversation.
Well, the conversation really was a ministry that grew, which is what really bothered the abortion clinic workers so badly to get you in trouble. But you were so. Are you back to doing that now that you're out there doing this pro-life work? Because I follow you on Twitter. I see a lot of work you do.
Well, you're awesome, and I so appreciate you being very patient with me, and thank you very much. Right now, I'm speaking all over the country. There's so much that I'm being called from place to place to talk about what can we do to help Black Americans understand or get the message, the pro-life message. How can we relate to pastors and Black leadership? And the Issues for Life Foundation, that's what we specialize in. We help Black leadership understand what we're really facing, and we help communicate that pro-life message.
And I want people to know, listening to you right now, that Walter Hoye, the Baptist minister Walter Hoye, famous in the pro-life world, founder and president of the Issues for Life Foundation, will speak at the Walk for Life West Coast in San Francisco on Saturday, January 26, 2019. Folks, it has now turned December. That's coming up next month. People are making their plans for the March for Life in Washington, for the West Coast Walk for Life, and that gets bigger. They both do every single year. We have the March for Life in Chicago. That's growing larger too. Walter Hoye will be there at the West Coast Walk for Life in San Francisco, Saturday, January 26th, 2019. It's towards the end of the book, Walter, that the book about you, it's called Black and Pro-Life in America, and your face is on the cover of it. I love seeing that because it's on your Twitter feed, and you're always, Walter, finishing your message about what's happening in the abortion industry, what's happening in the pro-life world. Brothers, we need to talk. And I've always loved that, because do people respond to that? Do they follow up and say, all right, Walter, we do. What do you want? What do you want us to do? Do they follow up on that?
Well, they really do. They really do. See, being licensed or ordained, I'm literally part of the club, so to speak, when it comes to black preachers. And I understand there are 4 reasons why black leadership just rejects the pro-life movement. And when you understand that, and the only reason why I do it is because I'm literally part of the team, you could begin to put together the right strategy. So when I'm posting, pastors or brothers, we need to talk, I'm literally communicating, and it's getting across. And there's not a day that goes by that they're not either calling me or they're on my website, in my library, looking at all the information that's on my library.
Well, you can find also more information at issuesforlife.org. That's issues, plural, number 4life.org. You can see that on my show page. I posted it there. And the book, I'd love to keep talking, Walter. There's a lot in here. Black and Pro-Life in America, Walter B. Hoye. It is a fantastic sister. It's a bitter story in some ways, but it really is a witness of heroic greatness in service